Welcome to Parenting Differently, where we leave behind the old way of parenting and allow the gifts of motherhood, of fatherhood, of parenthood to raise us. Different to how we were raised, perhaps different from how society is telling us to raise our kids, maybe even different to how we expected we would be raising them. Just different. I'm your host, Anya Simmons, and I welcome you. I am a mum of two big people, and I came to parenthood as a British nanny and thought that it was going to be quite easy because I'd raised some other people's children. And I wasn't prepared for how strong an influence my kids have had on me raising myself. And I felt that we were raising together. So it was a pretty phenomenal journey and totally changed how I thought I would be parenting. I'm a yogi as well, a parenting coach, and I am so excited to have my guest today, Miss Kim Short. We actually met, I guess, a couple of years ago at the audition for Vagina Monologues. And Kim was a pro. She'd been doing it a few years, and it was the most terrifying thing for me ever. I thought I'd just audition. And then when I got the pod, I kept thinking, how do I quit this? And I stayed the distance, and the growth in there was incredible, but it was absolutely terrifying. Now, Kim is also a fellow podcaster for What Led Her Here is her podcast, and she has a passion for inspiring women and girls. She is also has a skincare business for Roden and Fields. Welcome, Kim. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Good, wonderful. So we'll dive right in with the first question. Who are you and who are you parenting?
Who am I? Well, I'd say, sort of a woman in transition. That sounds a bit deep, and it is. As you say, my passion that I've found in the last few years is empowering and inspiring girls and women. And I try to use that in all areas of my life. And what I think I'm on a journey. I know I'm on a journey right now to figure out how to have the greatest impact in that area.
Mm-hmm.
And my girls, I have three girls. My twins are 15, and my little one is 12, not so little anymore. But they are my reason. They've been my greatest gift, my greatest teachers, and they are my inspiration for wanting to bring this passion and this message to others. So I'm just trying to figure out, through my podcast, through, different areas of my life, how I can serve others and leave the world a better place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Beautiful
just
mission.
just little just little stuff like that.
Hey, I love people with a big mission. I love it. So not a problem. But the catalyst for change, right? That's ultimately it. Fantastic. So would you say, well, what would you say would be your biggest lesson that your girls are teaching you?
I would say it's to be authentically me, because that's something that I definitely didn't grow up with. Um, and I was not a confident kid. I wasn't a confident adult until I was in my 30s.
Mm-hmm.
And it really wasn't until I was a mom that I started to reflect on who I was and what I was putting out there into the world, and thinking, like, why am I changing myself to be what I think, right,
Yes.
other people might want or might like? um, and here I am trying to teach my girls to be, authentically you, and who cares what other people think. Meanwhile, I'm still having these doubts and changing myself. And it was a really big wake up call for me in my 30s. And I really hope that, I've taught them these lessons so that they can struggle a bit less and really embrace them earlier than I did.
Right.
Right?
Yes. Yeah. No, but and I think that for me, definitely, this whole conscious parenting is exactly that. We, like you say, we can keep saying, "Oh, be strong," and say your opinion. But if we're not, right,
Yeah.
it's needs to be us living that, and then they see that, right? It's little seeds planted, or they just even if it terrifies them too, or they're like, "Oh, I'm not sure about that." They're just this authenticity you talk about. I really relate to. that was an
Yeah.
eye opener for me, right?
Yeah, I think like being a good role model for my girls, it's always there. You
Yes,
know, I'm always very conscious of you know, of being of walking the talk, I guess,
yes.
you know.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah. And so, what, from how you were raised, I mean, you've touched on that, but what were some parts on how you were raised maybe that you really wanted to impart and include in your family life?
Well,
Yeah.
I, you know, that's a loaded question. You know, I grew up in a really dysfunctional environment, and I've realized over the years that we all come from some amount of dysfunction. I mean,
Mm,
our parents, you know, they're humans, right? And just because you have kids doesn't mean you like all of a sudden change into some
no.
perfect person. I mean, we all make mistakes, so you know. Anyway, that aside, like I always like reflecting back on my childhood, I always remember my mom, like the communication was quite open, especially as far
Mm.
as like taboo subjects like sex. Like I always
Oh, okay.
remember being able to talk to her about that. And I remember my friends' parents, that was like not at all something that was happening. So looking back, you know, all the other stuff aside, I did take that piece with me, and I'm really open with my girls. That's
That's
always
great.
been really important to me, and just like the physical affection,
Mm.
that's also something that I remember having with my mom. And like I love that. Like my girls and I were always hugging, and you know, like they're on my lap, and like I just hope that I, even as they grow up, like I hope that always stays, because I just like that's totally my love language. And so
Right.
like I just feel so connected to them when we can just like cuddle on the couch and stuff like
Oh. Now, do
that.
you think with the three of them, especially having twins, are you parenting them differently? Like each one different to each other, I should express. Yeah.
Well, Um, I guess in a way, like some of them, you know, sometimes like my one daughter will need me more, right? She'll need more
Mm.
attention, she'll need more time, or another day it'll be another one. So I always try to, and that was hard for me because at first I was like, well, everything has to be equal and the same. And, you know,
Yes.
but that's not how it has to be, right? We need to give them what they need. So I think it's just time and attention when something's coming up for one of them. Like I make sure that, you know, I give that to them, and then I tell the other ones like, look, like this one's having going through some stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
just like I'll be there for you when you're going through some stuff, like I need to take care, right, of
Right.
whoever it is, like.
Okay. And then in that, how do you handle, for yourself, staying connected to you in all of that? Because that's overwhelming, right? When we've got lots of energy, and I know girl energy, I have one of my own,
Yeah.
that, um, not losing yourself in that, or do you have you lost yourself in that, and then how do you kind of bring yourself back?
Yeah, you know, I did lose my like emotionally. I would get so like intertwined emotionally in what they were going through when they were
Right.
younger, you
Right.
know, whether it was like, you know, a catty girl in class that they were dealing with or whatever. And I found myself like on this emotional roller coaster with them, and I was riding it,
Right.
and I was like up and down, and it was really exhausting.
Oh God, yeah.
um and I came to a point where I actually remember I was giving a talk at a women's storytelling circle one night, and this was probably 4 years ago. And I walked in the door to this event, and I had my talk all ready to go, but it's something had just happened with one of the girls, and I was so emotionally wrecked. And I was the first one there. I got there a bit early, and I said to my friend who was hosting, I said, I'm bawling, and I said, I don't think I can do this. Like I am.
Right.
And then it was that, like, I literally cried my way through the talk, and the topic of the talk was authenticity. And so I was like,
Oh,
well, here I am. I'm like,
yes, fantastic.
in all of my messiness, here I am. So it went okay, but I still look back on that as sort of like a pivotal moment where I was like, I can't get in the trenches with them emotionally,
Mm.
right? And that's not serving them when I'm like all the highs and lows with them. Like I need to take a step back and like be there with them to support and guide for sure, but
Right.
I can't be so emotionally involved that I'm also a mess, because that's not helping anyone.
Right.
So that was
Right.
something that I really had to think about, and that's helped my parenting loads. And I
Mm.
still have my moments as just a naturally emotional person. I still have my moments where I'm like, I can feel I'm starting to dip a toe in that pool, and I'm like, stop and like, take a step back and take a
Right.
deep breath, take 5 minutes, whatever it is, and then I can help them better when
Right.
I'm not like either heated up, or you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I relate 100%. And I think that's this empath way of many
Yeah,
of us, right? And
yeah.
that I remember when, as my daughter was little, I think grade three, I'm thinking, or something. Her best friend who she'd had in grade one and grade two had left. And she felt really like she has no friends. And oh
Mm.
my God, I wanted to go to that school. I wanted to call the teacher and I wanted to say, you find her a friend. She's a good girl. You find, and every time when she'd come home and she would cry, and it was heartbreaking. But again, it
Yeah,
was that lesson. It was heartbreaking because I could relate to, oh my gosh, now she has no
yeah,
friends. What if she never has any friends? I've already gone into my own fear of, oh, but she's so lovely. Why aren't people noticing? And I felt like I was always almost kind of going, oh, and she does, let me promote her. And it was like, that's her journey, right?
yeah,
That's her way. And I had to sort of really, like you say, hold space, be that comfortable place to land, be that place
yeah,
that we would cuddle and have tea and, let's try and make it better and how it feels. And we'd come up with some strategies and things. But yeah,
yeah,
those ones that it's so hard to be out. But like
yeah.
you say, otherwise it's exhausting and then you can't function as your own human.
Yeah.
And
Well, I think something that you just said is important, is the projection of our own stuff. And
yes.
that I was doing a lot.
Mm,
And that, I guess in some ways it can be helpful that we can relate to what they're going through. But in
right.
other ways, when we make assumptions based on our own experiences, that's when it can get
Right. Yes.
into an icky place, because then it might be assuming things that will never happen with them, and then it causes them undue stress and
Yeah.
worry, you know what I mean?
I agree. And I think on top of that, we can keep it going by something that maybe they would for themselves just be over or just deal with or not a big
Yeah,
deal. We can keep it going by going, how was today? Did you get to play? Oh, you have no like,
yeah,
oh, it's like, whoa, lean back,
yeah,
lady, because
yeah,
you can, yeah, and then that's all my stuff, right?
yeah,
That's nothing to
yeah,
do with the situation. So yeah, yeah, I totally relate. That's not a sort of surprise. And on staying with the sort of parenting and then expectations, how do you handle sort of your own expectations of um, where they're at, what they could do, what they should do, to really letting them be authentically who they are?
hmm. Yeah, that's a good question. Of course we want them to do their best and to be happy and to be successful and to, but I've really been conscious lately of letting go of those societal expectations. You need to be married and have the kids and the job and the blah, blah, blah. Because that was placed on me quite heavily as a teenager.
Mm-hmm.
And it made me shift really my whole life trajectory in a way. I mean, I have no regrets,
No, no.
but I was on like an arts path, or I wanted to be, and my mom was like, nope, you're getting a business degree. That's what's going to make you money. And the end. It was like end of story.
Yes.
So that was a good lesson, because that was one of the things that made me really think like, I want them to be happy. And so my twins are now, they just picked grade 11
Oh,
courses,
okay.
and they're,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about what they want to be when they grow up. And they're stressed, and they're telling me like, this is so stressful. Like, and I said, it shouldn't be. This should be exciting. And I said, you're not signing a contract for the one thing you're going to be for the rest of your lives, and that's it till the day you die.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is, think about what are the things that interest you? What are the things you're naturally good at? What are the things you don't want to do? Like what,
Just
like
as powerful. Yes.
my one daughter was like, I know I don't want to sit behind a desk. I'm like, fantastic. That's great. That's important to know. So I'm just like, I'm trying to tell them, like, think about what brings you joy and do more of that. Right. And
Mm.
whatever that means for you. And of course, like, you want to make some money. Like, you don't want to, like, you want to, there are certain things you want to, be successful. But I think it's more of the stuff that brings you joy, and also the effort that you put into it.
Yeah.
Right. It's because it's like, oh, well, what if I don't want to go to university? Like, okay, do you have a plan for what you want to do? That, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
it's, like, as long as you're putting in effort and, doing stuff that makes you happy, I think that's the important part.
And I think that was the part that was missing when we were growing up. I mean, I'm older than you, but
Yes.
like even those generations of, it was about, okay, is this needed in the world? Like they need, you, or this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
And I think that just being able to say to kids, find your joy in it. Because if we really believe that that's what makes the changes, you'll make money at it, or you
Yeah.
adapt. It'll be your journey, right? You'll adapt. You'll be. I've always, with my guys, always said, you need to take care of your own business. So you're going to need to be able to buy a house or pay rent. You're
Yeah.
going to feed, just like those kind of things. And then after that, it's you, right? We all know we're going to be a bit fed up with that after a while if you're only just getting through. So then, I love what you said about for the grade 11 courses, because I remember it with my two too, sort of saying, well, what would you like to do for the next couple of years? I said, just think of it like that, as opposed to, because my daughter would come home and she had these, I'm going to go to English and I'm going to get this degree and then I'm going to go on to this degree and this. And I was like, I didn't even know you what part of English I'd never even heard you talk about, right? And it was more just what was coming in, and it is stressful, right?
Yeah.
And if we're trying to break society norms, it has to be okay. Both my guys took it. I mean, lockdown happened, but before that, they both took time off school and then chose. And it was so lovely because when they chose, and my daughter's just chosen, it's coming from a place of, oh, I really want to do this.
Yeah.
So I love
Exactly.
that. I love that. And now, Miss Kim, for yourself, how do you create time for you or for your dreams, or, find space for that with three sort of basically teens in the home?
Yeah. I mean, just on a excuse me, on a daily basis, throat chakra. I don't know, is that telling me something? Um, um, sorry. So, just on a daily basis, what I've been doing in the last several months is taking extra long walks with my dog. It sounds silly, but like, and I'm
No.
listening to audiobooks, and that time in nature, sort of like, taking in knowledge, because I've been doing a lot of, like, sort of personal development books, like, is so, like, it's just filling me up so much. So just on a daily basis, that's become like a practice, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
that's really been beneficial for me. Sorry. And the other thing, is my podcast, as you mentioned earlier. That's something that is really a passion project for me. That's, I mean, it's all about, like, allowing women to explore their stories, to share their life experiences and the lessons they've learned.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like there's such power in storytelling. And when women open up and we share authentically and we get vulnerable, like when anyone shares vulnerably, right,
Mm-hmm.
it can create such deep connection. And I think that is really what fills us up, right, in life,
I
are
agree.
those connections when people can relate to us, or we can, like, share ourselves and receive that support and love in return. Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
like this that's like the good stuff.
Yes, I
So that's really
agree.
what I want to put out there, is like a safe space for connection.
I love it. And I think that I know for myself, when my kids were young, I would miss that. I didn't have that. I didn't have it. Maybe I wasn't open to it, right? Maybe I know I was very protective of everybody, of my kids and everything. And, but just, I realized when, thank God I had it within my preteens and teens for my kids. And I realized, gosh, how I missed that, because it was almost like I couldn't be vulnerable enough when they were younger, because I was
Mm,
so scared that I would be messing up, or I'd be so scared that I'd be judged, because I was
mm,
judging. Obviously, we know, you mirror.
yeah.
Um, that I held it all in, and it was only when you could finally sort of go, oh, Oh, you feel that too? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh, yours. Okay. Okay. Let's go to realness in parenting
Yeah.
and not the, oh, everybody's, yes,
Yeah.
here's the face. We've got our face
Yeah.
ready. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
How do you feel that, like, when you mess up, as we do as parents, or when you've been impatient or mad or really, really gone nuts, so, how do you work to for yourself? Like, how do you make that okay for yourself first, like releasing guilt, shame, and then
Mm.
how are you comfortable are you with your girls, making amends, I guess.
Yeah. Something that I have done, which felt really weird at first because this never happened in my own upbringing, is I apologize to them. And we're all human and we're not perfect and we're all working toward becoming better. Like I'm really conscious of my own mental health because there like there was not a healthy situation in my upbringing. Um, so I'm always really conscious of that. And when I feel like I'm getting like in an unhealthy place, like I really focus on that. And it's been good because it's not only I'm focused on my own, but on my girls as well. And like I've really tried to normalize mental health with them because like, why isn't it? It makes no sense to me that
No.
there's this stigma around it. Like how I've always explained it to my girls is like, if you have a sore throat and, we gargle with some salt water at home for a couple days, if it doesn't get better, we go to the doctor and you need an antibiotic, right? And it's the same thing with mental health. It's like if you're having some things and we've dealt with it at home the best we can, we've done the breathing and the yoga and whatever else, and it hasn't gotten better, then we go and we seek professional help. Like that's how I've always related it to them. So what was your question?
Yeah, that's okay. That I sort of make my questions too long, I think, because I,
No, it's
I I
okay.
start on simple and then I go and how about and I would say, okay, let's start with, how do you make amends to yourself? Like, are you quick to forgive
Oh,
yourself? Are you quick to
yes.
kind of?
Um, Sometimes,
Mm,
I um sometimes I beat myself up because I know I've gone too far. I know I've gotten angry. And I hate that, right? Like, but at the end of the day, like I apologize to my girl. I apologize to myself. I apologize to the
good.
girls. And I just say, you know what? This is why I went crazy. Like, this is why, like, and I try to explain it. And sometimes I just have to say, like, I lost it and it wasn't right, but it happened and I want to do better. And I
Mm.
just, I mean, and that gives them the space to, like, when they, have a
Oh,
moment, a
sure.
meltdown or whatever, like that, and then that they know that they're not a failure because that happens. They know they're not a bad person because that happens. Like, it happens to all of us. So
Yes.
I feel like, giving them the space to know that it happens sometimes, is a good thing, right?
I noticed for me, anger was a big underlying thing, which is usually
Mm,
fear and the rest of it.
yeah,
And I would notice I'm getting angry, and you feel it, and you can feel it building up.
yeah,
And it took me for a long time to learn tools to, how do I stop? How do I feel
yeah,
it happening, I feel it going, but then I'm in it. And then, I'm
yeah,
looking at these little eyes looking at me, who I'm probably scaring, or they're like, what the heck? All I did was,
yeah,
and it often had no rhyme or reason. And it really, I would say 99.9% of the time, had nothing to do with them. It was
yeah,
my own, hey, how about take care of you? I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know to claim time for myself, those kind of things. So I do relate that you would sort of say, okay, whew, a moment,
yeah.
and it was one technique I learned, which I always laugh about, what my clients really like, is this idea that you just stop. As soon as you have that thought, you stop. And it sounds easier, but I would actually have to put my hand across my mouth, because I would be in
Mm,
midstream. And even though my head is saying, stop, this isn't what you want, I would want to finish my conversation or and I would just go, and the kids would be like, she's really lost it now. And that sort of technique made me just kind of go, okay,
yeah,
now now I'm ready, or, oh, okay, I'm out of here a second. Right? It's so
yeah,
silly, but it was a way, because once you're in it and that emotions are strong, and our kids are
yeah,
triggering things, and we're triggering things, and self-care and all of the, like, I love your walk idea. I love that. I can see how fulfilling that would be.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you. And for you, the hardest part of parenting?
Um, I would say it was that emotional roller coaster that I was on
Mm.
before, that I've really consciously stepped away from. That was, and I mean, we're still so emotionally invested in our kids, right? And I think even though I'm not on the roller coaster anymore, there is still, your heart hurts when they're
Yeah.
not happy, when they're not healthy, when they're not in a good place. And so, like, I think that's the hardest part, is like having your heart, like, out in the open, right
Yes.
outside of your body. But I guess with those hard times and those hard emotions, there's also those incredibly brilliant emotion. Like, I could cry just thinking about, like, how much I love these girls. Like, oh,
Yeah.
they are like, they make me so incredibly happy. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Beautiful. And the final question would be, if you could tell your younger self something, like the first time you held, and you had twins first, so you went ram into motherhood.
Mm, yeah.
Is there any advice you would give yourself, knowing what you know now, when you were first a mama?
Mm. I would say just be gentle with yourself.
Mm.
You don't worry so much. They will be fine. The love is there. You're gonna make me cry.
Oh, I like. Oh, I feel like Oprah.
But, like, just you know what to do. I think that's the key. Is you don't need to read all the parenting books. I think we intuitively know what to do, what not to do, and just to be gentle, and just
Mm.
the love and the open communication. Just keep that flowing, and all the other stuff will fall into place.
Wow. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much, Kim. I really appreciate your time today. And for everybody listening and watching, I will have all the links to finding Kim and her wonderful podcast and what led her here. That's the name you can find. And if you're loving these parenting differently, please subscribe, please share. Let's get Kim out there. Let's get parenting differently out there, and so that we can all be this catalyst for change. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you so much. I love what you're doing. I love this topic, and I really appreciate you having me on today.
Thank you.